I had to Google some things like, what's a web view?
Fair.
But then I Googled it and went, oh, it's one of those. There's a web view. Welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's Products and Tech podcast. And I don't know why I'm laughing already. This is ridiculous. So today's episode, we're diving back into the world of apps because we have had a session on apps before. But this time we're getting into, and I'm not sure even if it's the word topic is right, but of Composable. So to share your wisdom, and I know, Fraser, you were looking at me before when I said wisdom, but I've got three awesome guests. I've got Fraser Chapman. Hey, Fraser.
Hello.
You're from the Java world, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And I've got Jimmy, Principal Apps Dev.
Yep.
Oh. And last but not least, I've got Ellen Bentley, also Principal Apps Dev.
Hey.
So I've actually got next to zero knowledge on this. Like we were talking beforehand, I had to Google some of the terms that you sent me over as a little bit of prep. So we're going to start with, because I do understand this is a bit of a game changer. Every time Benny Mack, who's one of our tech owners, talks about it, his eyes light up and he's dead excited. So really, what is Composable? And think about, obviously I'm a non-techie, not really knowing what's going on. So explain it in layman's terms, if possible. I don't know, who wants to take that one?
I don't mind taking that.
Yeah, do you want to take it?
Yeah, so if you think the traditional way of doing apps, we've got all this data on services, tells you what a car is, what colour it is, what reg it is. Apps will request that data, and then it'll draw the UI on the screen. So it'll draw the pictures, it'll know all the logic and all the information to draw that will live on your app, which is downloaded off the App Store. Which isn't always great if you want to update stuff, because every time you have to update, you need a new release. So Composable is our framework for defining that UI on the server and sending that across to the app to draw the pictures.
Well, so real time?
Kind of real. It's every time it makes a request. So instead of requesting and saying, right, give me what a car is, it'll say, right, give me a page. And it won't know that it's getting a information and layout for an advert for a car. It'll just know that it's getting some stuff to draw on the screen, and it'll draw it. Think of it like how a website works, and a web page and a browser.
Yeah.
But for a native app, done natively with the look and feel of a native app. So we've got the ability to change and update the apps as quick as a website does, but we've also got the actual native code and native capabilities of that. It's pretty amazing, really.
It is. And like, for example, if on the homepage we had like, say, a static image and you were like, actually I quite like an image carousel there, that would make a lot more sense. Previously, we'd have to do it on both clients, take it to the App Store, release it. That could take weeks. Whereas now with Composable, we can just do that, release it on the server, and we can get it done in hours. So it's a really big improvement.
And so is this... so it's Composable. So I didn't Google Composable. I Googled web views. So I didn't Google Composable. So is Composable something that is like an industry standard that we've like bought into the theory of, or is it something that we've built, or like, so what, if I was starting to look for Composable now, would I see lots of examples that were representative of Auto Traders, the way you approached it, or is it something that you've not come up with, but created yourself?
Kind of a bit of both, would you say, Jimmy?
The theory behind it, it's called server-driven UI because the UI is driven by the server. So the theory behind that is used in a few places, so it's already out there. Composable itself is the name we've come up with for our version, our library we've built ourselves, so nobody else will have the Auto Trader library because we've built it fully from scratch.
Right.
And we called it Composable. If you Google Composable, annoyingly you'll get Android Jetpack Compose, which isn't to be confused.
So I'm glad I didn't Google it this morning when I was like prepping for it, because I'd have been like off on a complete tangent already.
So sometimes you get these in an app team. You get these little things. It's Android versus Apple, Android versus iOS, and it's a joke. It's a bit of banter. And you come to naming something, and you go, "Oh right, we'll name this Composable because it sounds really Androidy." And it's like, "Yes, we've won." And then you go and do talks about it, and every talk you've got to explain that Composable is not Jetpack Compose. And then you realise that sometimes it's not good if things sound like something you've got on your platform.
Yeah. And so thinking like, so if we're going to go to where we are today, but like, what was the thing? Was it the time to release? What were the key drivers to start to go down this path? Because I think years ago, and I used to work at the apps team, it's obviously, like you said, things took a while and you had to release it and then wait for approval and then go there and then users to download it, etc., etc. So was it that time to live that was one of the big drivers to invest in this?
Yeah, I think time to live and having to duplicate everything, so to do it twice, both on Android and iOS, probably the biggest contributing factors, as well as the other big demand for work, I believe.
There was also the... So we have this huge backlog. The apps contain everything the website does. We try and keep them in parity. As Ellen mentioned, we've got to make everything twice. So you need an Android developer and an iOS developer to do that. Both teams which have their own backlogs. Web development's flying along in the background.
Is this where you jump in, Fraser, at this point? Because Fraser's flying, you lot are suddenly stuck in treacle.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So we were ending up becoming a blocker to work getting done. So we needed to increase the speed that we could release things, increase the speed that we could do these updates, reduce the duplication, so reduce that we need to do it on 2 platforms and potentially mess it up on one of them. But we also needed to open it up a bit so that web developers and web development teams, I shouldn't really say web development teams, it's development teams, could do their changes on the apps as well. So if they need to do a text update or a new page update, then they can just jump on the apps and do it. We'll go, sweet. And we don't have to be the blocker anymore. Yeah. We don't have to go, all right, well, you need somebody for Android and you need somebody from iOS.
So, Fraser, is this where are you seeing then, so from your day-to-day job, is this where have you had exposure to working with Composable and being able to get things you're working on out there?
Yeah, so we built the part exchange apps journey through Composable. So that was me and Cole. So yeah, I think we had a couple of meetings with people from apps, got some support, got some training up on it, and then we could just start flying through it. It was quick, yeah.
And what is so if it's then, again, it's helping with the time to live, removing duplication, allowing like Java devs, so obviously the features that they're working on, products they're working on, to be able to be implemented in the app's approach as well. So is there anything where you look at it and go, actually, these are because those things sound pretty cool, but they're quite, I'm going to say businessy things, you know what I mean? Because like time to live, efficiencies. So is there other cool things that you get with this Composable framework, things that you go like, that other developers might go, this is brilliant? Is there anything in it, or is it all the business benefit? And I know it sounds a bit naff, but you know what I mean. Is those are things that maybe I care about more, and using it is. So is it really usable? Like you said, you had some training on it. Is it something that's easy to use?
Well, I was going to say, I think that there's a bit of a learning curve with it, because it's like learning a whole new framework. And if you're not, it's written in Kotlin, so. If you're not familiar with Kotlin, there's a bit of a change there. Once you've kind of got through those, it's pretty easy, because you can you're just chucking components together. You've got all these pre-built components. You just plug data in, put it on the page where you want, load up the emulator, and it's just right there.
And are these all things you've built as well? Like everything?
Yeah, everything from the ground up. Over about 3 years, we started off. We could build a page that showed some text. It's quite basic text as well. It was getting the formatting wasn't amazing for the first iteration. We could show an image. We had a button to click OK, I think was the first iteration. And since then, we're up to version 12 now, I think. So we keep making new versions, new releases, adding more and more capabilities to it. So Composable is termed from the idea of having a component. A component is a section of UI, so a button could be a component, or a text field could be a component, or an image. And we build up the screen based off all these little components. So as we built it, we added more and more, enhanced the features, improved performance and what we could do on it. And the sky's the limit. Who knows what it's going to look like in 3-4 years.
Because beyond the business improvements and opportunities it gives us, there are quite a lot of interesting development challenges. We've got to, like, as native developers, we get to work in Kotlin, which for Android devs is the same, and for iOS devs is similar enough to Swift that it feels quite at home. We got to build a DSL, so like a domain service language that's how you construct composable content. So that's like we get to create our own language essentially, which is a great development challenge. And then there's still quite a lot of native work required to support these components and to support them in multiple configurations and have dynamic content through things like the store. So there are still quite a lot of very interesting bits of native development to do.
Yeah.
And we're kind of farming out the more kind of businessy, kind of just like set up a page that has X, Y, and Z in it, then gets farmed out to like other people who can do that. And we get to do the more like native skilled, like make a dynamic carousel that can display for X different amounts of content. So it kind of almost gatekeeps the really interesting bits of development that we get to focus on, whereas we're not as bothered by the day-to-day, which is really quite a nice development experience.
Yeah. And you said it 3 years, because I remember, I think it was back in COVID days, I remember going on a call about, I think it was pre-part exchange, it's GPX, and we said it's all right because Composable's coming and we'll be able to like get even more people working on it. And I remember being on a call in 2020 and going, oh yeah, sounds brilliant. But at that time, in my mind, I thought we were like buying something. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't realise that the apps devs, like you said, it felt like there was a bottleneck because obviously you were working on web and then you couldn't get the same, because of the backlog, the same pace through with the apps team. So how did you manage to then, because obviously we've come on low as it's 2024, I think. Is it 2020? Yeah, it's 2024. And in those 3-4 years, how did you manage to sort of manage that, creating a platform whilst then continuing to work on the products and evolution? Because obviously you said you're on version 12, so that's taken a level of like commitment. So how did you get the right balance between stopping everything and just working on creating this platform, or like not doing the platform and doing something different and just carrying on doing what you were doing before, because that was easy?
Well, trick was we didn't stop anything. All the work to make the platform was built into releasing a project.
Right.
And we only released the components, the bits of UI that we needed for that project.
Right.
So with Deal Builder, the project was extended a little bit, whilst we built the new capabilities and the new functions to enable Deal Builder. And by the time we'd released, we've got everything that the other teams need to actually update Deal Builder because we've made it, and we've got stuff to do future projects as well.
Yeah. And so does everybody in the apps team contribute to sort of the maintenance and the creation of the platform?
Yeah. I think pretty much everyone's had a hand in it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, yeah. I think everybody's done some part of Composable. Even people that have only joined a few months ago have rewritten parts, added parts, made changes.
Yeah.
It's very much one of the key things when we originally started it. One of the key things we had in mind was it needed to be used by external teams, but it needed to be extendable with our teams as well. Yeah. So there's kind of like two levels of users we had to think of, as well as the actual users that see it in the end.
And so when like Fraser, like you talked about you and Cole, when likes of Fraser and Cole get involved, is that where things they find, you look at different like improvements? Can it, like, do you contribute to the platform, or is it all you're the user and you feedback these the things that are a little bit difficult?
Yeah, so we only work on, I guess, the native app. What is it? The native app service. So that's we're not building any of the platform. It's quite nice actually, because if we find any bugs with stuff, like if testers come back and they're like, "Oh, this thing doesn't look right," we can sort of just chuck it over the wall. And the thing is, we got a fix back like instantly. It was so quick. So yeah, we don't actually work on the composable stuff.
So you're a consumer of it.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so, like, again, this is the bit like in my head, and I'm going to go back in history. Like, so if I get the business drivers and I get why we're doing it, but there's obviously a level of investment. Is when did you know it was? When did you know it was the right thing? Like, because obviously there's lots of path. I mean, I don't know whether you looked at it and said we could go down path A, do what we do today, just carry on, and we'll get more people, or you go, we'll go down path B, which is we'll build something composable, or we'll go down path C, we'll buy something, or we'll go down path D. And I think we talked about like using web views. Is when did you make the choice and go, this is the right choice? Or was it, because Ellen, I know you've come in more recently, is it, I've seen this somewhere else and this could really fly? Like, what was that spark or that moment of going, you're over the void, this is the path we're taking?
I don't know, it's before my time. But I think by the time I joined, we were pretty much set on Composable. But I know there were some discussions early on about buying something in, maybe using something like Flutter or React Native. Did those go that far?
No, we looked at the options with those, and everything was on the table when we initially looked at things. But there was, because of our existing services, because of the reskilling, so obviously if you go with something like React, it's JavaScript and some more native code, so it didn't quite fulfill some of the purpose of exporting it to web teams and having something that's familiar, working with the back-end services. We could have worked it in, but it would have been quite a large chunk of work up front. And we went with the path. It was actually inspired from a talk by Spotify, who used a similar server-driven UI model, and they scaled theirs up and up and up, and I think they've scaled it back a little bit now. There's a few companies that do it, but not many that have succeeded.
Yeah.
Not many that have done it well. So as we were working on it and developing it, it was just like, this is working, this is good. And we've never really looked back and looked at any of the other options, because once something's good, it hasn't presented
so
problems.
What version did you get to where you're going, this is good, and then what was good? Do you know what I mean? Like, is good that like Fraser and Cole can join it and help, or is it what was the, or is it more the fact that you could, as an apps team, make a feature change and get it live within hours rather than weeks? What was the thing that you said, this is good, and we are now going to go from version N to version 12?
Do you think it happened before Deal Builder, or was it Deal Builder that was the real test?
As a perfectionist, you'd say it's never good. It's always going to be better, and we're always going to improve it. That's all that's going through my head. But it is good. Yeah. It's great. The stuff we've achieved is brilliant. I think getting the external teams on board, the web team, so the Deal Builder team originally worked with us building the initial product, but now they own all of that. So they own the Deal Builder section in NAS, they own all the Deal Builder work and are contributing to apps. And I think that's the real win. That's when you say, wow, this is working and people are getting it and nobody's complaining as much as we thought it would. So you always release somebody else, you think, what's going to happen? And then everyone starts using it and saying it's great, and you're like, oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously the Part X is part of the whole Deal Builder Deal Builder piece. It's funny because we've done quite a few talks on Deal Builder, whether it be around some of the new like design components or look and feel or brand. It seems to be that is a catalyst or the benchmark for quite a few new things we've been doing. So I'm gonna go into, I know we haven't even talked about any of this, but like if we're on V12 now and it's working as you said, it's good. Like, where do you think you can take it? Like, if you could roll forward another year, like you said, Spotify went right out there and then pulled it back a little bit. So where do you want to take it? Have you got a view, or is it just a case of depends on what the next project that comes along is?
So at the moment, we're taking quite a few sections of it to Kotlin multi-platform. So where we've currently built the Android and the iOS side separately, We're now doing certain areas in Kotlin multi-platform, so there's one library and one source of truth for what's on the clients, which is it's part of the original goal. It's having a single source of truth for all the logic. So that's one of the big drives at the moment, moving things to this single source of truth. But there's also other areas that we can go through. There's, what if we could do animations? What if we could do fancy navigation transitions? What if we could do native sections within sections of composable pages? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's wherever the road takes us.
Yeah. So do you feel that has really opened up the opportunity, whether it be collaboration between teams or, like you just said there, Jimmy, like actually where you could push it that maybe previously you felt like it could have been constrained?
Yeah, definitely. It feels like we're in an expansion phase right now of just what we can do, which is a great place to be.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of my notes because there was loads you were talking about before, and I was trying to work out which one I wanted to go back to. So there's one that we've not talked about so it sounds brilliant, you know what I mean? Like, it looked brilliant. Like, everything's great. Like, there must have been because there are always some shockers along the way, or really, whether it be difficult decisions or really hard problems to get over. So, and I like doing all the positivity, but was there really any ones where it was, hitting your head against a brick wall, whether that be using it as a Java dev or actually trying to get the platform out there, any like stumbling blocks? So I'm in another company right now thinking this sounds brilliant, and I'm trying to persuade everyone it is, but there's always the hidden problems. So was there any gnarly ones you had to get over?
Can't think of anything too bad, but I feel like that was probably before I joined for any initial.
So one of the main ones wasn't actually anything to do with development. It was a people problem. So while we're developing this new platform, this new system, it's all exciting. We see how exciting it is. We see how great it is. When you're trying to recruit people, especially for iOS development, it can be a little bit of a blocker unless you sell it properly. So depending on where in their journey a developer is, especially junior or mid-level mobile developers typically want to work on the platform they work on and become experts at it.
Yeah.
So when you try and hire iOS developers, they'll be like saying, I want to work strictly on iOS. I want to do Swift. I don't want to be doing Kotlin. And that hits. It does cause some problems, but it's also to other people in different areas of their progression of their career. It's actually brilliant because they get to learn technologies and do really fun, cool stuff rather than sitting making the same UI repeatedly in Swift.
Yeah.
So as a challenge, we didn't really, we understood we'd hit it, but we didn't understand how much.
Yeah. So Ellen, you said you were recruited after the journey on this started. So when you were coming in, what was your view of it?
I think I'd done something a little bit similar, but on a much smaller scale that a company I worked for previously, but that had been in TypeScript. So the fact that it was in Kotlin was really interesting to me.
Right.
So yeah, I was an easy sell.
Yeah. No, I've not really thought about that. So do you think is there another angle where people think, well, there is no need for apps developers anymore because it's all going to be over to the Frasers and Cole of this world, like, you know what I mean, who are just going to be smashing through it, and it like de-skills the apps or the need for apps?
It's an argument. I think fortunately for us, maintaining the components is still required. There's still a lot of apps work there, and not everything in the apps can and should be composable. There's things that you're not going to want to put behind a network request that you want people to be able to access offline, and just areas that want to interact with the OS, things like passwords, login and stuff, where you kind of want to keep in the native realm.
Yeah.
So it kind of almost means that the native developers just get to do more of the interesting native stuff as opposed to. And it's a problem that I think it would have been much more difficult if we had gone down the React Native or Flutter, because then you wouldn't have any native developers really, or if you did, they'd be different skill set people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have no idea what to do if something went wrong on the apps. So I'd be absolutely useless.
But you know, because you've been with us a few years, is it exciting for a Java dev as well, going, actually I can start seeing the output of what I'm doing, actually using this framework and out on the apps? Is that a different?
Yeah, it is pretty mad. Like, I'd enjoy like getting up on my phone and stuff, or like even just viewing it on the emulator on the laptop. You can see like I feel like, oh, I'm an app developer, and I can show people at home. I'm like, oh,
I was going to say, I can imagine like, because me and Fraser from like just down the road from each other.
Yeah.
I can imagine like in the whisper, like check this out, Dad.
Yeah.
Look at it, because that's the bit where I'm, like, my dad, he's got an iPhone, loves apps. You know what I mean? He thinks, because I work in technology, I do things on apps. I'm like, I do nothing on stuff like that. But it is cool, isn't it, when you see it? I didn't really think about that sort of the benefit, not only of your learning framework, but then the output of what you're seeing. Because obviously you guys see that every day because you're on the apps.
Oh, it's still magic though when you put it's on a little device. It just feels like, I don't know, more special sometimes.
Yeah, well, I love it when they put the because I like Apple, but when they put the Apple emulator and the little phone comes up on your screen, I'm still like amazed when that happens. I'm like, I love that when people go through it.
So the thing I like is when you're walking down the train and you see people on the phones, you see some of the Auto Trader app, and you're just like,
yeah,
that's me.
Cool. So what's it been like? Like again, it's probably more that platform thinking. Sort of, has that been a mindset change as well, going that we're not just building the apps, but we're building a platform? Because that must be, again, a bit of a mindset switch a little bit.
Yeah, because everything we build out has to be very composable, but it needs to be very configurable, and we have to kind of think a lot more about the edge cases. We're not building a gallery to go in this one place. We're building a gallery that could be put in 5 different places in the future, that has configurable tracks, that has everything that we could need in the future. So it's definitely changed how we think about delivering new things. We don't really think so much in terms of we're building this page. We feel more we're building this capability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So if I wanted to know more, I know like I was going to start you all on LinkedIn. I think I'm connected to Fraser, but not you two. Is there like, where could I find out more? Is there anything you're doing, like whether it be externally or people can like hook you up on LinkedIn to chat further? Because I'm sure there'll be people that want to know much more about this that are actually technically intelligent, which I'm not.
Oh, it's good you mentioned this, mate.
Teeing you up here.
As I was saying, we've got a talk coming up at the DevOps conference in London. That will be around the 8th of May, which will be hopefully recorded and put on YouTube as well, so people will be able to see that there.
And who's doing the presenting there?
It'll be myself and Harriet from the apps team as well.
Cool, yeah.
There's also should be some blog posts going up soon onto the engineering blog that will give you an intro into what Composable is and what we've done. And just watch this space because it'll keep rolling out, keep getting more coming.
Yeah, and like, being serious, like, I know we're joking around, is this the end of like app steps? But you know, we're recruiting new apps people coming in, so it does feel like we're really starting to accelerate and get that parity that we've always desired. So it sounds brilliant. And from a Java dev perspective, I'm sure, Fraser, you'd be happy if people pinged you to say, what is it really like to be used in this sort of framework?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Yeah. Right, so I know we probably missed something, but hopefully we'll be able to cover that, whether it be in the future talks, your blogs, or if people hook you up. So massive thanks, Ellen, Jimmy and Fraser. Much appreciated on this. Well, at least it stopped raining now, finally. So for listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning into this episode. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Remember to hit the notification button so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that's us done for today. Cheers for that.
Cheers.
Cheers.